Order. Order. This is the Standing Committee on Community Services. Oops. We good? We good? Okay. Order. This is the meeting on Standing Committee on Community Services. I'm Melissa Sheehy-Richard. I'm the MLA for Hants West and chair of this committee. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are Mi'kmaq, the traditional ancestral land of the Mi'kmaq people. Today, we will hear from presenters regarding an update on the economic and cultural impacts of hosting the North American Indigenous Games 2023. I just want to remind everyone to make sure your phones are on silent. And in case of an emergency, we would like you to use the Granville Street exit and walk up to Grand Parade. I will now ask the committee members to introduce themselves, beginning with MLA White.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm John White. I'm the MLA for Glace Bay and Dominion.
Good morning, I'm Larry Harrison, MLA for Colchester Musquodoboit Valley.
Good morning, I'm Danielle Barkos, MLA for Chester St. Margaret's.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Tom Taggart, MLA for Colchester North.
Good morning, it's good to see you both. I'm Susie Hanson, the MLA for Halifax Needham.
Good morning, I'm Laura Lee Nickel, MLA for Cole Harbour Dartmouth.
Good morning, I'm Ben Jessam, the representative for Hammonds Plains Lucasville.
I would also like to note the presence of Chief Legislative Counsel Gordon Hebb to my left and Legislative Committee Clerk Tamara Nusabi to my right. I would like to, at this point, welcome the witnesses here today and ask you to introduce yourselves as well, beginning with Mr. Smithson.
Let's go first. Hi, I'm Brendan Smithson, CEO of the North American Indigenous Games. I was previously on a secondment from the province of Nova Scotia, where I worked in CCTH, and I also want to know, just because of the side of the table, I used to work in the Village of Bible Hills Recreation Director, so there's a lot of area was mentioned there, so I just wanted to highlight that as well, so thank you.
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
I know it's a mouthful. Fiona, Nitasitikison, Ekwa Mina Ganipawit no Siwawaskasu. My name is Fiona, and my spirit name, my Cree name is Standing Elk Woman, and I'm originally from a small community in northern Saskatchewan called Amachiwas-Bimawin. English name is Stanley Mission. Part of Lac La Ronge First Nation in Treaty 6 territory, and I've been here in beautiful Mi'kmaq now for over 24 years. So I do call this beautiful place home, and I'm so honored to have been the chair of the 2023 North American Indigenous Games, and it's an honor to be here with all of you today.
It's certainly wonderful to have you here. At this point, I would invite you to begin with your opening remarks. Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
Thank you. So Brendan and I will be tag teaming on this, and I want to first introduce this by saying we have some incredible news to share with all of you. These games were not just an everyday occurrence. As you know, if those of you who attended would know that there was a special vibrancy in the air. There was something that happened that was unique, that Halifax has never seen before, that Chipuktuk has never seen before. Not in modern memory anyway, that's for sure. Certainly not since contact. I'm not overstating that, and I think that when we share with you some of the facts and the observations that were made and the feedback that we received during and after the games will illustrate that Halifax, Chipuktuk truly shone this past summer. So I'm really honored to be here with all of you today. So I will just share with you a few slides. First of all, I want to pay respects to George Tex Marshall. Now, George Tex, he would rather be known as, is not able to be with us today, but he was really the originator of the idea of bringing the North American Indigenous Games here to Nova Scotia. And it was through his vision that drove us all to do the very best we could to represent this area so well, and also to welcome the approximately 5,000 youth that came from all across Turtle Island to gather here in the very first gathering of its kind in Atlantic Canada's history. So our organization set out, and internally we had these organizational priorities. We did communicate that this was all about making friends, playing games, sharing culture, and having a legacy that lives. Our mission is to bring together Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island, welcoming them in the spirit of friendship, sport, and culture. And these are our values: culture, passion, experience, athletes, Miigwech, which means to be united, and Jalasi, which you probably heard a lot when you were walking around town, and that is a big welcome. In Mi'kmaq, it means it's more than a big welcome. It's you come in, sit down, and join us. So at these games, we saw 16 sports. We had over 3,200 volunteers, and I want to pause for a moment and say that we actually had over 5,000 people apply to volunteer for these games. 3,208 completed the entire process of the trainings, the cultural awareness training, security checks, and all of that. But that just tells you how engaged people have been in these games. They really wanted to be part of it. We had over 4,700 participants in the end, and 52 venues were used across mostly Halifax, but also in Millbrook First Nation and Sabaganagati First Nation. Over 730 medals were presented, and almost 775,000 live stream views of our games took place. So that's a bit of an overview of what happened. We wanted to frame this up for you to just communicate. If you weren't able to be at the games, this just gives you a sense of the enormity and the impact of these games from an economic and a cultural perspective, and we'll get to that in a moment. Brendan, did you want to speak to the human resources piece? Because this is really your bailiwick.
Mr. Smithson.
Thank you. So just kind of wanting to highlight a little bit of the staff. Our staff was absolutely phenomenal. We hired passionate people that cared about these games, and it was reflected in the volunteers, the youth that came, and everybody commented how hard they worked. We had 47 full-time staff on with the team to be able to do that, all employed and living in Halifax. We did bring people from around Turtle Island to come in because they all wanted to be part of these games. One of the big things I wanted to highlight was our kind of structure. So we had 4 different departments: sport and venue, which is a big part of the games, obviously, volunteers and HR, again, a huge part of the games, and marketing and communication. But one of the things that we were the first to do was we added a department of culture and engagement to make sure that culture was a priority in our games. We had a goal of being 50% sport and 50% culture in all functional areas of the games, and this department was making sure that that happened. Serene Porter was leading this as the director and did a phenomenal job to make sure that Indigenous and Mi'kmaq culture was highlighted everywhere. We wanted people to have the opportunity to engage with culture how they felt comfortable. Everybody's journey is different and where they are along that path, and so they can do that in the way that they felt comfortable, and you could see it throughout the games in so many ways, which we'll talk a little bit as we continue going down forward. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, you want to
Sure. So some of the challenges we had during the games, I think everyone knows weather. You plan for the games, but you don't plan for a flood, which happens as part of that. But some amazing work with the people at HRM and EMO and all the departments coming together to make sure that when anything happened, we were ready to react. And we reacted in a very positive way. Very little impact to the games in general. We still had games going on and teams being able to participate. We did unfortunately have to miss the closing ceremonies, which you'll see up there as well. But overall, that one stage of weather, we always plan for weather and have a backup to what happens, except when it happens on the last day and you can't move anything anymore, was one of the pieces to it. But we did some really nice celebrations. The size of the games, it was one of the things that was talked about before the games, and how big these games are. Just to kind of give a scope, the only games that are bigger than the NAG games is the Olympic and the Pan Ams. Our budget is nowhere near what the Olympics are, so there's always a challenge within that. But the idea of 5,000 youth, feeding, housing, sport, culture, all those pieces is just a massive undertaking. And without the staff that I showed earlier, this wouldn't have been possible to be able to put together. And transfer of knowledge, the games has had a limited transfer of knowledge from previous games. So we actually were almost starting from scratch again and building things out in terms of how we were putting it together. We've made sure that we have a robust transfer of knowledge going forward. But not having that knowledge has its ups and downs. In terms of an upside, we got to make it what we wanted. Downside is there's some pieces of information that would have been great to know when we started, but we found it along the way and I think produced something great in terms of all the challenges that we have. Pushing them all. In terms of some of the achievements we had, one of the big ones was medical support. Our volunteer lead was Dr. Brian Seaman, who worked with the province and public health around not just the support of the athletes, but ensuring that the support was there for the amount of visitors we had and that Nova Scotians didn't have any impact to their access to it. It was one of the big keys that we talked about. There's going to be a lot of people in Nova Scotia, and making sure that Nova Scotians still have access to their health care was extremely important. We worked about having, we had a polyclinic for the games, but we also had pop-up clinics for visitors so they weren't overwhelming the current hospitals that were in place, which worked out extremely well. And I think from the results that we got back with the province and public health, very positive in terms of how that worked together, and there wasn't a disruption to service in terms of that. So really great partnership. That was together for about 5 years and working with everyone. There's not many provinces that the CMO of the province gets to be the chair of your committee, so that was a big help when you get to be able to have such great high-level people around the table. Our volunteers and staff, there was daily comments about how amazing our staff and volunteers were in this province. A person would ask a question and they would literally spend all day finding the answer to make sure everyone felt comfortable. We really tried to create that environment where, this was family coming in and making sure that you're treating them that way, and all Nova Scotians stepped up in terms of our volunteers and made sure people felt welcome here. Every morning we had to do a 6 a.m. meeting with all of the delegations, and every morning every one of them commented how amazing your volunteers are and the work that they're doing along with the staff, and just making sure their kids felt comfortable going above and beyond anything that was requested. You ask someone to open a door and they will go way above and beyond that. We've seen that in Nova Scotia in so many other events, and it shone very broadly in this one. Sharing of Indigenous culture. So we really, in the games, the requirement is only the fact that you have to have a cultural village, which was on the Commons, which I think most people would have seen. But we added 2 more on the waterfront end in Dartmouth Crossing. We also used the Mi'kmaq language on our signage. So we would, there'd be English, French, and Mi'kmaq. And making sure the opportunity that people could engage with Indigenous culture, how they felt comfortable. As I said earlier, everyone is on a different path with their journey, and not everyone is visual. Some people write. There's different ways to engage with it, and we want to make sure that we were able to do that, and the culture team did an amazing job on this. This is often a part of the games that gets lost. You got to feed kids, you got to transport kids, you got to do sport, you got to house them. There's only a little bit left after that, but we ensured that it was a big part of our games in terms of that. The last one was spectators. I've been to 2 NAG games before. Spectators aren't bad. There's usually a few parents that were in there. So a lot of our venues were asking, all the events are free except for the opening ceremonies, which sold out in 10 minutes. So everything else was free, and we said, don't worry about it. Usually there's a few people around. After the first day, all of our venues said, so you've gone over capacity. We're going to have to talk about limiting who goes in there. So not just parents, but a lot of parents came to see, but also Nova Scotians came out to support everyone. And it wasn't just Nova Scotia games. It was any game that we had, the stands were packed. I remember walking into the Canada Games Centre with volleyball, and I couldn't get in. I was like, wow, this has never happened to me before. And I've been a coach at other games, but just to be able to see that. The RBC Arena was where lacrosse was hosted. Traditionally, that rink is actually cold because it's an arena, and everybody was very excited to have it in there. The biggest complaint during the games was that the RBC was too hot because there was too many people there watching, and it was just a crazy excitement in terms of that. They were 10 deep on the side and in the stands. So everyone came out to support this, volunteer, staff, and even spectators, to how amazing it was. And the amount of visitors that came was unbelievable, and that is not traditional within the game. So this was something that was special, that a lot of people wanted to come to Nova Scotia, which just echoed as we saw the numbers there from there. Why don't I turn this over to you for now?
Okay. I love this part.
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
Thank you. I keep forgetting about that introduction part. So we had many, many firsts at NAG, and a lot of these firsts are really legacy as well. So the first time beach volleyball was featured at the games, that was a big one for us. Very popular sport. We also had opening ceremonies for the 3 traditional sports, which was box lacrosse, 3D archery, and canoe kayak. Thank you. I heard you saying it coming into my ear. So those were beautiful. We had traditional ceremonies to honor those particular sports. And we also had sport and culture sharing the same venues. So we really infused culture into the sports. They weren't separate. We also had smudging stations. And I don't know if any of you went to any of the venues and you noticed there were tented areas where anybody could go and participate in a smudge if you wanted to. And I know this was really well received by the participants. They weren't expecting this, and they definitely took advantage of the opportunity to pause and take care of their spirits, take care of their mental health before. And our volunteers who were doing it, my daughter was a volunteer at a smudging station, and she absolutely loved it. She just wanted to keep doing it all week, but she only signed up for 3 shifts. And she's like, oh, I wish I could do more. It was such a beautiful experience. And for visitors who have never done it before and were invited to partake, that is part of the cultural legacy. That sharing of culture is not just about sharing culture within within the nations that we're coming, but also with non-Indigenous peoples as well, so they could feel part of these beautiful games. Also, as Brendan mentioned, there was Mi'kmaq signage, language on signage. That was a first. There's not been Indigenous languages on signage before at any of the games, so this is definitely, and we had so much wonderful participation in creating this too, because it's not just a matter of translating a word. A lot of the words that we have in English are not exactly translatable in Mi'kmaq, so we actually had a committee and we had people working on this, and great participation from the community from a cultural perspective. We also had the Youth Cultural Performers Program, and we had an amazing Elders and Residents program. We did not only had elders here, but we also had elders from all the other delegations, and we gave them opportunities to gather together on a daily basis so they could meet each other. And elders, of course, are a very important part of our cultures. And I say cultures because we are not a monolith. The nations that came here are all very different. And from, the nations from California, for instance, are different from those from the Yukon. So, and their practices are different as well. So it was really great for them to be able to meet and for us to provide a venue for them to connect and provide the kind of emotional support that many of the youth did need, because let's face it, a lot of them, this was the first time they'd ever been away from home or on a plane. Some came from a very far distance, and even some who came from New Brunswick are homesick, and they needed some care. And that was, as Brendan said, a high priority for us, and it was noticed. And this is definitely a legacy, because I know that games going forward are going to adopt this kind of programming as well. There's more NAIG firsts, in case you thought that was the only slide. We had an awesome transportation loop through Halifax Transit, Metro Transit. And so if you had a participant's badge, you could hop on and hop off the bus at any time. So that was fantastic. But there was a loop for going to venues. The HRM Transit really collaborated with our team, and they offered their buses as safe spaces. So if any youth felt uncomfortable in a situation, if there was some sort of perceived threat or real threat, they could get on a bus. Those were one of the most accessible places they could go, and the bus drivers were all aware that, if a youth came to them, that they could find refuge. So that was just a great, psychological, if you will, respite. We also had the Indigenous Mental Health Division, and this was something that really started, we had to activate very early on in the games. In a couple of instances, and these are the things that didn't come out, and I don't want to violate anyone's privacy, but we did have some tragic circumstances that happened outside of the games with family situations, and our mental health professionals and team was there to support the youth. We had ceremonies for them as well to help support them. Some were in mourning, who had youth recently lost a parent. And we surrounded them with all kinds of support and love in a way that was culturally relevant for them. So that's an example of the importance of this. We also had our Youth Ambassador Program. This was an opportunity for young people, Mi'kmaq youth, to learn about how to host a games. We made them active participants before and during the games, so they were there to help promote to the youth, how to leadership skills. They organized an event before the games where they could gather and showcase culture. What other things did the youth ambassadors do, Brendan? It's on top of mind.
You've covered most of it.
I've covered most of it.
In terms of being leaders.
Yeah, it was a great program. Again, it was a first, so I know that other NAGs to follow will be following this as well. We hosted great cultural awareness training. Anyone who volunteered for the games had to take cultural awareness training as well as sport-specific training or role-specific training. And that was so well received, and I think it inspired a lot of people to want to learn more. I had so many volunteers tell me, I never knew any of this. We were not, and if you're over the age of 25, you did not get any of this education in school, right? I guarantee if you have children or grandchildren, they're all talking about this now in school, which is wonderful. But we made sure that the volunteers had this training so that our participants had a safe place. They felt seen, they felt understood. And I think it went a long way. I even heard volunteers greeting me in Mi'kmaq, non-Indigenous volunteers saying Jalasi and Willalan, and I, that's a shift. Like that is a shift in the impact, right? That's an example of impact of culture on our population. This did not happen before NAG. Isn't that amazing? It just gives me chills to think about. Oh, we had incredible pins. Now I'm wearing one right now. I wish I had some for all of you, but they're all gone. But for a price. No, just kidding. But we had pins for. I'm kidding. Strike that from the record. We had pins from all kinds, like the sponsors and so on. But we also had pins created for the traditional sports, and those were so well received. They were the hottest ticket in town. The kids went nuts for the pins, not just kids, everybody. It was a very, very, and it was just a great way for people to meet each other. I had youth coming up to me and talking to me and, do you have this pin and that pin and can I have that pin? And it was wonderful. But the traditional sports pins were unique, and that was a NAG first. We also had sponsored medical professionals. Brendan, can you speak more to this program for me? Because I do know about it, but you have a better concept of what this was.
Mr. Smithson.
Thank you. So sponsored medical, this was put in by our medical team in terms of the fact that these games are just coming post-COVID, and the medical community is done so much for COVID, and there's a burnout factor. And then asking our medical professionals to volunteer their time for these games after that is a lot. Mm-hmm. And we needed a lot of medical volunteers. A lot of them were able to do that, but what we did was we brought in medical professionals from across the country in Canada into the games to be able to support the medical needs. So it also heightened some of the services we were able to offer in terms of that. And then also made sure that all venues, all our polyclinics were covered, and again, making sure that the Nova Scotia system is still able to continue functioning at the level it needs to by bringing from other provinces in for the game. So it was one of the big pieces. This is done at every Canada Games, and we were the first to do it in NAG, so it was a great opportunity to be able to do that, as well as bring in Indigenous medical professionals to help support some of the mental health pieces as well. Do you want to keep going since I... Got to switch. Just going to switch it over to her.
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
Thank you. It was the first time a Prime Minister of Canada attended a North American Indigenous Games. As hard as that might be to believe, it is true. And we were very honored to have Prime Minister Trudeau here. He not only attended the opening ceremonies with his young son, but he also participated actively in the traditional opening at the canoe kayak event at Lake Bannock with his son. And, he did it in a very humble way. And I know that he was well received by the community. And he was genuinely engaged. And I personally spoke with his young son, who was so lovely and delighted to be here. And I think that, to me, is bringing a young person who's the son of the Prime Minister to meet, other youth who are from all across Turtle Island. I think that was just a beautiful gesture and a sign to us that there was, reconciliation in action. And I felt that was very important, and I know that was very much well received. Do you want to speak to this one, Brendan?
Sure.
Oh, sorry, really quick, if I could also add, you mentioned Canada Games. This was also a first. We built a relationship with the Canada Games, and we did a lot of sharing of knowledge, but also of sporting equipment and supplies. So some of the equipment that was at the games in PEI, in the Winter Games, we used some of their technology equipment, and that equipment is going on to the 2025 games in St. John's, of which I'm actually on the board of those games as well. And so we've built a real alliance, if you will, between the Canada Games and NAG, so that we are I guess, creating something better. You know, the Canada Games are supposed to be pan-Canadian, and really, you know, they acknowledge that there have been gaps in the participation of Indigenous peoples at the Games. Yes, opening and closing ceremonies, we all know there's lots of that, but real integration, and I think Brendan made some amazing connections there with the CEO of the 2025 Games and with Canada Games Council. So they're at the 2025 Games, they're looking at smudging stations. They loved that we had that, and that is very much part of the culture of the First Nations peoples in St. John's or in Newfoundland and Labrador, so they're going to be incorporating that. I mean, that's an example of the ripple effect, that cultural impact that's, you know, it's maybe an intangible in a way, but I think it does create an atmosphere that has never been done before. So over to you, Brendan.
Mr. Smithson.
Do you normally have to go back and forth on these? Instead of going through each one of these individually, I'm just going to kind of give the overall concept and highlight some of them. A couple things that we wanted to work on is that we wanted to acknowledge that the NAG Games are not just sport, and there are other factors. It's not just youth and kids. So when you look at the first program around community coaching, this was providing opportunity for youth who have just finished their coaching career or playing career, some that were eligible in 2020 but not in 2023, to learn about the coaching stream and what's involved with that. And so creating that opportunity for them to become active for life and give back to a sport that's been part of them, it was fully subscribed to. We had 2 from each delegation attending the games, which was phenomenal in terms of that. As you look down through some of the other ones, one of the big things that we really focused on was the idea of creating a welcoming environment in the venues that we currently have. So when you look at the Mi'kmaq flag in the venues, and the Scotiabank Centre just raised the Grand Council flag recently, this is about when coming into an environment, you feel welcome. And it's taking those little pieces. So we talked about the language earlier, the Mi'kmaq Grand Council flag. Those pieces create that environment that when you walk in, you feel that this is a welcoming place and supportive. And we wanted to make sure that not only that happened during the week of the games, but that continued going forward. And so it was important for us to make sure a lot of these things happened in terms of that. One of the neat things is the beach volleyball court being renamed was actually Volleyball Nova Scotia. Had nothing to do with us other than they asked them how could they get the word translated. And so that just shows the work and what the impact of these games can be in the partners that we work with going forward. The last one I do want to highlight, which is the NAG Hall of Honor. So this is the first time we've acknowledged they've started like a Hall of Fame for NAG, and it was our 2023 that decided to move forward. So that is the picture of the 4 award winners. 2 of them are founders of the games, and on, it would be my far right, might be left, depending on how you're looking at it, is Sarah Lynn Knockwood, who was inducted into the NAG Hall of Fame and just recently into the Nova Scotia Hall of Fame as the first Mi'kmaq athlete. And so great to be able to see so much history in one space that people have contributed to these games over time. And for us, it was very important to acknowledge the past as well. And so this will be a legacy going forward for the games as part of our work. Sorry, I actually forgot my glasses, so I have to look on here.
Do you want me to take this one?
No, it's okay. So again, there's a lot of positive social impacts and economic. So the economic report is just being finished up now, actually. So we should have that within a week. But the positive social impacts we've talked about on the previous slide, environments becoming more welcoming and different pieces that are happening across the province. We did also have a reduction in environmental impacts. We were the first games to do water stations. So working with Halifax Water, we had an outside water tap at each of the venues, and we provided all volunteers, athletes, and mission staff with a bottle of water, or sorry, not a bottle of water, a water bottle, sorry, so that we weren't using plastic water throughout the whole games and having that positive environmental impact. We also housed people by sports. We did that for multiple of reasons, but one of the biggest impacts was over 2,000 of the athletes walked to their venue, and there was no buses required. It has an environmental impact and some other positives in terms of that, so really great to be able to do that. Some big things at the Halifax airport that you'll see there. There's a picture there is some of the art that's been added, and then the traditional canoe remains there. There's also a Welcome to Mi'kma'ki sign that's there now as well. I know Serene and her team did a lot of work to be able to work with the Halifax airport to be able to do these. Most of these things were done on their own. This was not us saying you need to do this. This was them saying, how do we create the environment that you're asking for? And it's really great to be able to see that. Two facility upgrades. One is for the track and field at Beasley, so you'll see there's now stands there that weren't there before. That was by HRM moving that up in terms of the pieces to that. And the community ball field, they had done an amazing upgrade. It was one of the late additions we had to add because we had so many softball teams, and they added lights to their field and redid the field, an absolutely beautiful field. One of the amazing parts of the legacy of that one is that traditionally the field has only been used by community members, and now outside community is using it because the field is the best one in the area, which is just phenomenal to see in terms of that impact. So. The next slide is just a video. It's about 3 minutes long that was from CBC. This was actually a summary of the games, and I think summarizes it very well. This was supposed to be at the closing ceremonies, but unfortunately they were not closing ceremonies. But it does give a really, this is the final slide, but just wanting to share this video with everybody. It really does summarize how it works now. You're going to promise me that this works?
I'll just touch it.
Okay. Oh, damn it. Turn the sound way up.
Games, united in this dream.
How do you sum up an experience like this?
Thank you, Nag. Merci.
You don't. You just feel it for yourself.
Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. We're now going to move into the Q&A part of the committee. I just want to remind everybody that to wait for your light to go red. I'll acknowledge you before speaking. And we will begin with 20 minutes per caucus, and we will begin with the Liberal caucus and MLA Jessom.
Thank you for the opportunity through the chair. How do these games get funded? Seems kind of a blah question to get started with, but let's get that one out of the way. And just curious where the funding comes from to support these athletes and the games as a whole.
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
That is a great question. There's nothing wrong with asking that at all. We had three key funders, top funders, which were the federal government of Canada, the provincial government of Nova Scotia, and the municipality of Halifax. We also had tremendous support from corporate sponsors and exceeded our fundraising goal, actually. So that's allowed us to have a bit of a legacy, and that's something we can chat about as well. But I guess I might as well say that right now. We have a legacy fund committee, and we have an obligation through our hosting agreement with NAG Council, or North American Indigenous Games Council, to allocate the funds that are any surplus funds would be 20% to NAG Council, 10% to the Aboriginal Sports Circle, and then 70% is at the discretion of the NAG Legacy Sport Council, and with the objective being to go to support Mi'kmaq sport in Nova Scotia.
MLA Jessom.
Thank you for that. You expressed some weight and importance behind, I'll say, the sustainability of the games and some of the challenges that you encountered in planning, and an appetite to ensure that there was some continued information or things that are carried on to future games. Can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
Sure. I think if I understand the question, you're asking if the knowledge that we gained is going to be how that's going to be transferred for future games. Great. I think Brendan could probably add to this, but I'll first say that we actually had this in mind all along, is that we wanted to make sure we were able to pay it forward to the next hosts. And it's just that there wasn't a mechanism in place. And I will say that NAG Council is a volunteer council. I'm a volunteer. There was nobody sort of full-time taking it on to make sure that knowledge has been transferred. So we're not blaming anybody. It's just, there's only so many hours in a day, and you can only ask volunteers to do so much. So I want to say that first. But we wanted to make sure that we are transferring as much knowledge as we have to the next games. So we started the process ourselves, but we also engaged the services in kind from Deloitte, and Deloitte has provided us with essentially what we're calling a games in a box, which is essentially an ability to electronically capture everything that we know about hosting a games and providing that in electronic form too, and also physical form. We have physical pieces to transfer to NAG Council for use by future NAG hosts. Did you want to add to that, Brendan?
Mr. Smithson.
In terms of 2023 hosts, our staff, and the board, NAG is a movement, and it was important to us to keep that going forward. There's been some changes along the way that the games have also been lost, and so for us, one of the biggest keys was that I would say and have heard that 2023 was the best games that have ever happened. But we look forward to 2027 being better because we want people to build on the great work that's done. 2017 was the first games before ours, and we built on what Toronto did from that perspective. So for us, it's so important that all the information is shared. And I mean, I've met with the future hosts many times, and so has Fiona actually as well, in terms of making sure that some of the lessons learned along the way is shared, all of our documents and other pieces, because it's about the youth, and that's important to us to make sure that continues going forward from that kind of a knowledge perspective in terms of how we're sharing.
Emily Jessom.
Thank you. Through the chair, you referenced, I think it was 70% that would go into, I'll say, future opportunities. Can you elaborate on some, I'll say, initial planning on how it's still probably pretty new, so what are the plans for that little pocket of money?
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
I can sort of speak to that because the committee hasn't concluded yet, and we are still waiting for all the final financials to come in. But we actually have a meeting on Thursday, so it might be our second last, but we are getting close to it. And I'm reluctant to say too much at this stage because I don't want to raise people's expectations until we actually have the final numbers in. But I can say that the funds will go to known entities that support Mi'kmaq sport and encourage youth to get into sport, provide them with the right, tools and equipment and training that they need to thrive in sport. And it's always been, as I understand, a struggle to get enough funding for sports in the Mi'kmaq communities. So this will definitely be a great legacy of NAG, and it will be a great piece for many, many years to come. So we want to make sure that it's structured such that the benefits will be felt for generations. I hope that answers your question.
Emily Jessom.
Thank you. Through the chair, Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons, you referenced your participation on the Canada Games coming up. Is that a board position that is embedded in the Canada Games organizational structure? And I guess in a complementary way, is there a similar type of position that would be embedded in, I'll say, Nova Scotia sports structures, or maybe Sport Nova Scotia as a kind of the local representative body?
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
So the Canada Games Council asked me to be their representative on the board at 2025 Canada Games. Part of that reason was I have an interest in youth and sport. I was involved as a volunteer with 2011, and of course with my role on NAG, they felt it would be a good move for Canada Games Council to guide the next Canada Games towards more Indigenous inclusion. To answer your question about the Sport Nova Scotia, I'm not aware of a particular position for it's a set-aside position for an Indigenous representation. I don't know, Brendan, you know a lot more about PSOs than I do. Did you want to speak to that?
Mr. Smithson.
I couldn't speak to that. That would have to be asked of them, but I will say from the games and the work that has happened previous to the games, the integration is coming together and working on different ways to be more inclusive with Indigenous and beyond in terms of that. I gave an example within the presentation about the beach volleyball court and the naming of it. So there's a lot of things that are in the works behind the scenes that people don't even know about in terms of that. But in terms of a specific position, I couldn't speak to that. I know it is a priority within Sport Nova Scotia for sure around diversity and equity for sure.
Emily Jessom.
You spoke about the opportunities for smudging throughout the games in a very accessible way. For people in general, how readily available are opportunities for smudging in day-to-day outside of large sporting events or things like this?
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
I guess that, thank you for asking the question. I guess it depends on where you are and what your culture is, because not all cultures participate or use smudging as a method of spiritual cleansing or spiritual centering. So I guess I don't know how accessible it is. I mean, I personally do it every day at home and not in sort of a public way. But I would say, as far as public smudging, I don't know that I've ever really seen it other than in ceremony. And this is, I think, what really differentiated our games, is it was very publicly accessible and welcoming for all. And I hope people felt that they could partake. So that was the point. Yeah.
Mr. Smithson?
I just wanted to add that part of some of the venue selection is around the accessibility of smudging. So not all spaces, due to fire alarms and other pieces around that, do create some challenges around accessibility to smudging. And that we've seen that in part of it. I'm sure others have as well in terms of meetings and other things that have happened. But I think bringing awareness to it is starting to make that shift. But just to speak to some of the accessibility, even within buildings, there are barriers to be able to access in terms of that.
Emily Jessam with 938. Emily Nicol.
Thank you, Wallalin, for your presentation. And it's as you're speaking, and as someone who's been on the board at Discover Halifax in my past, we've always known that Halifax does events well. And given the nature of this games as a competition, it is a healthy competition across Canada that brings events to major cities that are prepared for it. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to say hi to Paul Forrest for me. As someone who, for 14 years worked with Paul on the Coal Harbour Harvest Festival, and I know where his heart is and what he wants to do, so I want to acknowledge that and say hi to him. And to you, Fiona, like I was on council when the NAG Games was presented to Halifax Council and how supportive we were, and looking at the brand and the big announcement for the brand, it was all very exciting and very much due time. And I think that's what you're seeing. People want to be educated, want to learn, and to make it a legacy. It's sort of like it's something we should have been doing all along. And I guess that's kind of my question in that regard, because I've often heard, and it sounds. I don't have any facts to go by it other than opinions. Every time a game is, like the Canada Games were held, and athletes always saying we're not supported enough financially. So I just wondered, in the future, where do you see the Canada Games and NAG sort of being on par, I guess, or I'm just kind of trying to understand from an event kind of perspective. It's great that everyone is learning the experience, and again, I'm grateful for you having that continuity and transitioning the games in general. But I guess the other takeaway was, you mentioned Toronto did it they did well, but then again, the competition, we had to do it that much better. And I have to acknowledge the volunteers, because I know that Halifax has long been, I've heard it several times, they said, I can't get over it, we just come here. Is there a network of volunteers that we can, and I've always suggested that they should have just a known network that anytime there's an event, you just go and ask them whether they are willing to. I know you're on that list probably, Fiona. But I just, I'm just sort of trying to, I'm excited about the whole thing, but I just wondered, going forward, is this something Canada is going to raise the profile across the continent, or is it, always going to sort of go back and forth as to depending on who the host city is?
Yes.
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
Thank you. So They're always going to be two distinctly different events, because the North American Indigenous Games are really for Indigenous youth. So that's always going to be distinct and separate. But what we're trying to do with the Canada Games, because North American Indigenous Games is North American, if you will, Turtle Island. So it encompasses, I think, about 25% participants from the United States. So that's the piece that, we have to remember is but the games are mostly held in Canada, and there's a number of reasons for that. We have infrastructure, we have funding, we have a will, we have the sort of volunteer infrastructure. You asked about, is there a volunteer database, if you will. I know we started one when I was with Events Nova Scotia. I'm not sure where that sits right now. Does it still exist? Yes, it does.
Send her over when you want.
I'll acknowledge that. Brendan did say that it does still exist. So there is a database that people can sign up to volunteer. But we did our sort of promotion of volunteers, and I think we got people who never volunteered before. I know that for a fact. So we definitely increased the. I hope that part of the legacy is that people now see the benefit of volunteering, of giving back. And yes, this was a unique event, but there is so much that you get from volunteering. If I didn't love it so much, I wouldn't do it. I do it a lot for lots of different things, and I'm not saying that to build myself up. It's just I get more from it than I probably give. So I think that people did come away with that feeling. So what we're trying to do as far as working together with Canada Games isn't to merge the two. It is to exchange knowledge. It's to make each other better. And honestly, Canada is at a turning point. We talked about, you mentioned we should have been doing this before. Yeah, perhaps, of course. But we are at a point now where we can really influence change. We're going to keep our foot on the gas, if you will. We're at a point in Canada's history of reconciliation. And everywhere we can see opportunities to bring people together and move forward and improve each other, then that's what we should do, in my opinion. So that's what we're doing at the Canada Games and the North American Indigenous Games level. Did you want to add to that, Brendan?
Mr. Smithson.
In terms of the volunteer database, Volunteer Nova Scotia has that. So there is a database that people sign up in. I believe the CCTH office is part of that connection in terms of that. So I know where that's sitting at. I think Fiona spoke very well about the two games. They are very distinctly different, but there are partnerships that can happen. Going through COVID, all of the games across the country went through it together. And so we learned from each other and how we develop that, and those partnerships are important to be able to move some things forward. And I think it's a great mutual relationship. And in terms of NAG, Fiona spoke great on that. In terms of, it's a very different event, and they have a different path in Canada Games to what they're trying to achieve in terms of that, and in terms of sharing culture is, it's very different across this country, as we saw in all of it coming together in Jabuktuk. So they want to make sure that that's highlighted, and that it's a 50-50 in terms of that. So the partnership's important, so that there is opportunities for the youth to be able to participate in Canada Games as well. But they are distinctly different events, and they want to make sure they're structured that way as well.
MLA Nickel with 2:45 left.
Thank you. And I've always had an interest and a heart for lacrosse, and I've always wanted to see that grow, and I'm hoping that there's an opportunity going forward, because we hear a lot about, and I represent Cole Harbour, yes, hockey's kind of king there, but I've always been looking at diversifying other sports as well. So and lacrosse was a great sport, and so I wanted to give that acknowledgement and wondered if there was an opportunity. But also to go back, so the economic report is going to come out tomorrow, I think you said. It would have been nice to have had it, but in that regard, because knowing events, I know that a lot of it comes in kind. And you mentioned a lot of, like with your transportation, you mentioned the infrastructure, things like that. Will the in-kind be acknowledged in the economic impact report that is going to be presented? Because, everyone wants to be a host, but you have to realize a lot of times that it's, that it's the in-kind that really makes it successful.
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
You're absolutely right. And we actually had some surprise in-kinds at the end when people just, organizations said, yeah. Yeah, it means, I like the word kind. It's a nice word. Absolutely, it is recognized. It's recognized also in our budget. You know, when we received, we also noted it's VIK, value in kind. So that is always acknowledged. It's important because if it takes, you know, something off our, you know, a line item, that saves us money, and that's more money that can go towards the Mi'kmaq sports here in Nova Scotia. So you mentioned the economic impact report. Is it tomorrow that it's coming out? It's coming soon. We no control over that. That's out of our hands. That was the provincial initiative. If you were down at the Cultural Village, you were probably asked by somebody holding an iPad some questions about your travel habits and how much you're spending and so on. So that's going to be reported very shortly. We had some estimates on prior to that, so it'll be very interesting to see how it compares with what's estimated. Our guess is it's going to be much higher than we originally estimated. So. Absolutely. Was there anything else? Did I miss? But when you mentioned lacrosse, yeah, I know for a fact that's very close to Brendan's heart. He's very involved in lacrosse. I have to tell us a short side story, if I may.
Order. Sorry for that. We will, we're turning over to the NDP Caucus, MLA Hanson, but I'm sure MLA Hanson would be happy to. Give you time. MLA Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do want to hear the short story, so you can continue on. No worries.
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
I'll make it 20 seconds long. Brenda's going to get embarrassed. But I just want to give a shout out to him. He went so over. This is not a CEO that sat in his office and put his feet up on the desk, okay? He was so involved with everything, but lacrosse is very close to his heart. And after a game, it was 4 in the morning. Okay, he had a meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning. He was sweeping the floor at RBC Center. He was sweeping the floor. Wow. And we're like, Brendan, go to bed. I just wanted to say that because that just shows you the level of commitment. It's leadership from the top like that just really inspired everybody, you know, to bring their best selves to these games. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Thank you for that. MLA Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you didn't interrupt. I think that's the whole point of having you both present today, is just to let us, you know, have an idea of, like, I mean, some of us have watched the games. I think most of us here have been a part of it or in some way have watched a number of games. And I think, you know, what was seen was just that, like, an excitement, a vibrancy, like young people doing things that they love to do and enjoying it as they're doing it, and as well having the support from family from abroad and from close to be able to cheer them on throughout the game. So I'm going to go back to funding, but I promise it will be this one time that I ask this question about funding. So you mentioned the 3 key funding streams is the federal, provincial, and HRM. I'm just wondering, is there stable funding by the provincial government to continue on the legacy?
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
So is there stable funding to continue on the legacy?
Yes, so after the events.
Yeah, MLA Hanson.
Sorry. Yeah, so you said that there were some funding still that you will allocate in different ways, but I'm just curious to know, has the province stepped up and said, you know, we will continue stable funding to go towards at the athletes and the training and such?
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
I learned to wait this time. It's hard to get used to. I don't know. I think, you know, what the province has done has been absolutely adequate, more than adequate for our needs. It met our needs for these games, and we were able to take that in combination what was also given us. I must say we had strong fiscal management that allowed us to get to the point of not only being on time and under budget, right, but we also had such tremendous support from our corporate sponsors. So we have enough money to provide these, you know, legacy funds for Mi'kmaq sports. I can't speak to other ongoing funding efforts that the province is making towards Mi'kmaq sport in Nova Scotia, but I bet you my colleague here can speak to that because he lives this every day.
Mr. Smithson.
Thank you. So in terms of games, there is a bilateral agreement with the federal government and the provinces to support training, travel, and other pieces to the NAG Games. So that's part of the funding going forward, as you mentioned, and in previous ones. And then there is other bilateral agreements around Indigenous sport that works together with the province in terms of the funding and those kind of pieces. So I'm not privy to the amounts, but there is funding that continues going forward, and those are signed off in the Canadian sport policy. So the PT governments are together and working together to continue that going forward.
Thank you. MLA Hanson.
Thank you very much. That's what I wanted to know, because I think, you know, when it comes down to the Truth and Reconciliation, those are a lot of the pieces that we want to make sure are going to be continuing, that is going to be ongoing, because it's not just a one-off, right? And we know this when it comes to communities and cultures, and you know this as well, Mr. Smithson. So I just wanted to make sure that there was something continual. My next question is, you mentioned the healthcare pop-up clinics and like not disrupting the services of the healthcare that's here at the time of the NAG Games. I'm curious to know, like, explain to me how this worked, because I mean, like, there's a lot we can learn from this, and so I would like to hear how that process worked.
Mr. Smithson.
For sure. So our medical committee included the host committee medical side, the province of Nova Scotia, and also public health, working together to share multiple things, including requirements of what athletes would need to bring and other pieces like that. The focus of our conversations was around how do we make sure that the medical system in Nova Scotia is not overtaxed. It is already at a high point because of COVID, and just coming out of that and wanting to make sure it goes together. So within the games, we have what we call a polyclinic, which for kind of simplicity of it, it's a small hospital. So any accredited athlete, coach or anything went to the polyclinic. So any part of the games was not being sent into the main system unless there was a major injury that needed an x-ray, because we didn't have an x-ray machine in our polyclinic. But the idea was any of those would come into our polyclinic. Other than an extreme emergency, they would still come to our polyclinic before they were recommended to the hospital, so that there wasn't just a deviation over there in terms of that. Working with public health, we were able to set up some pop-up clinics for outside visitors in terms of being able to access that, and the idea of not having to go into the straight medical system, which was also used by the community as well in terms of those. The idea was trying to keep as minimal non-Nova Scotians out of the current system in terms of that. When you're here for 8 days, it can be overtaxed quite a lot. Our incident reports were extremely high with the amount of things that went through the games, and when sport's going on, that's all part of it. But from the reports that we got back from public health and the province, it worked extremely well. I mean, I think there were some higher numbers within the system, but it's also tourism season, and everyone knows, everyone's in the city normally. But I don't think we went beyond exceeded in terms of that. And the partnership between our medical team and the province and public health, just to interact. We met every morning at 6:30 just to make sure we knew where the challenges were, what was coming, and then phone calls throughout the day to make sure everyone was on the same page. So having that partnership at the higher level, and then being able to deal with different pieces, including infections. I mean, one of the biggest things was how was COVID going to happen, and we didn't have an outbreak at all in terms of the game. So that was something that was monitored all the way through the games in terms of how we work together. So the idea of having a larger committee come together and talk about what are some of the challenges, and this is again where the Indigenous mental health side of things came into it. We talked about the anxiety of athletes coming to the games and some of the challenges around that, and we were able to bring that forward, and it was just an unbelievable partnership with all three parties at the table to working through all of the issues around how do we support the athletes as best as possible, and how do we make sure Nova Scotians are not impacted, because both of those were keys to success of the games in our mind. So and that was important to us. So that's where we focused, and how we kind of built out that structure that, as you mentioned, how we came to that answer. So
MLA Hanson.
Thank you for that. And you touched on the mental health. That was going to be my next question. When it comes down to mental health, culturally, it can be a bit different. And so I was just wondering what types of ways and uses that you were able to, tackle that particular issue as well.
Mr. Smithson.
A little bit tough to answer in terms of mental health is so broad in terms of what's part of it, but we worked with the Scotia crisis line in terms of having a 24-hour ability to be able to call someone. As we know, situation can arise throughout the evening and day when polyclinic may not be open. We had counselors within the polyclinic while it was open at all times, and then the elders and residents was a big part to us from a cultural point of view, being able to connect with an elder. There were, teams that did bring their own elders as well to support them, but you never know when it's going to happen in creating those spaces. So part of the reasons for the sponging stations and all of the venues was the idea that it created a bit of a calming sense. We wanted the youth to be able to be seen in Halifax and seen the culture, and so that was also part of kind of the mental health. So overall, it was the wider scope in terms of that, in terms of how we supported it, but really using, the Scotia crisis line was a huge help to be able to have that 24-hour access. Counselors within the polyclinic, and then the elders as well being available, and obviously a challenge to not overtax the elders, and how we kind of rotated through that and being able to support those was how we came together to support the mental health piece in the games. I'm sure there's more we could have done, but we started somewhere, and hopefully the next games will build on that as well.
Emily Hansen.
Thank you. And I will say, just based on what was seen, we had no idea that this was something that your organization, your group has developed. We from someone who was just looking in, thought that it was absolutely phenomenal and amazing, and really kind of understood and had an awareness of the different groups that were here, whether culturally from North America, in the U.S., and as well from here in Canada. So I wanted to also mention that I'm glad to hear that there's an alliance with the Canada Games, because they're learning things from what you've shown and what you showcased, and as well infusing the culture in the sport and the cultural legacy, because I think for the most part, when we look at events and we see these things that are happening, we look at them like, oh, this is great, like we're just here to a show and to watch these young people perform or do their sport, but at the same time, we're all taking something from what we've watched, what we've seen, what we've experienced, and just seeing that in play when it comes to the signage, when it comes to the cultural village and not just one spot and two other locations. I think we have a lot to learn, and in saying that, I'm glad that there are some things that are being transferred on naturally, and some things that are actually like, we need to do this work. Let's start moving with that. So I also wanted to point out when you mentioned seeing yourself reflected and creating the environment that you want to continue going forward. That is exactly what immersing yourself in culture is about. It's making sure that you're able to see that, and young people in particular, because they're the ones that are going to be leading us in the future generations, and they're going to be instilling that moving forward and doing that work. So I wanted to say that so within the Canada Games, with the Alliance, do you think that there will be, I think maybe it's early stages to know, but do you think that there will be discussions or movement on maybe having Indigenous language or Indigenous signage similar to what we had seen through these games?
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
I can speak to that because I'm at the last board meeting in St. John's a couple of weeks ago. I was informed that they are already moving in that direction. They have some other considerations in Newfoundland and Labrador because they have the Innu, and they also have Inuit as well as Mi'kmaq. So they are actually incorporating Indigenous languages into their venues in similar ways to what we did, because they really see the value in doing that, and they're taking pride. And they're fairly early on in their journey there, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. And they are now awakening to the value of ensuring that there's more inclusion, and it's really a wonderful offshoot of what we were able to bring forward. They were here to see what we did, and they're like, yeah, let's do that. Like, why not? Right? It's sort of like, why not? Why hadn't we done this sooner? So they took lots of ideas from us, and it's been a great relationship. There's been also cost savings between the two events. I mean, why not economies of scale and such? There's no reason why we can't collaborate. Yeah.
Emily Hansen with just over 6 minutes.
6 minutes. Okay. Okay, so we're going to get back to volunteering. We know that, and I think the volunteer numbers have gone down, but it was wonderful to see that, you had a large number of folks that wanted to volunteer. My thought with that is the cultural awareness training that you were able to give to folks, has that been asked to be transferred in other ways to other sectors in different parts of departments or government?
Mr. Smithson.
Yeah, so in terms of the cultural awareness training, I first want to acknowledge Serene Porter, who actually created the training in her knowledge, and worked with the community around doing so. From that perspective, a lot of the training, we promoted that only the volunteers got the training, but hotel staff, bus staff, university staff all asked for it in terms of that, from that perspective, moving forward in terms of where it kind of expanded beyond that. One of the challenges it's not a challenge but with the training is, sharing it to other regions, their culture is completely different than Mi'kmaq. It is a very broad Indigenous piece, but there is a very specific Mi'kmaq piece to it, just knowing where Nova Scotia is in terms of that. But I know there has been a lot of work that Serene did with the games and post-games about connecting with other organizations, and that from the games wanted to learn more about this. Part of the training that was, I think, the biggest key that the team did so well is, it's not an all-encompassing. It's a start of the journey, and then asking you to continue how far do you want to go with the journey, and giving you resources to do so, which is where we really saw our volunteers step up in terms of looking at other resources to know those kind of things. So opportunities around that, the training was set up for NAG in terms of how it works, so there would need to be some altercations to what's in there, because it was very focused on our games. So if you're going to a different government department or a different business, it might look a little bit different in terms of that, and would need some reflection in terms of that. But our staff is out there and probably love to help in terms of that. So some connections around that. But yeah, it was wider than just volunteers that took that training, and just phenomenal, the amount of groups. We actually had to start saying no because we couldn't meet the demand anymore. Like, multiple people came in and said, can we have the training? And it's like, look, we'd love to, but we got to get our volunteers done. So, at some point there had to be a focus, but, I'd say the training numbers was closer to 9,000 to 10,000 is who we actually hit by the time we were finished, which is way wider than the volunteer encatchment in terms of what they did from that perspective.
Emily Hansen.
I'm so happy to hear that. I think, any way that we can kind of bolster our awareness of the people around us and the environment in which we live and where we are, I think that's absolutely wonderful. So I'll keep that in mind in my back pocket. The only other thing that I wanted to say was that all of these pieces are exactly what we want to see when it comes to, as legislators, the work that we want to do. We may have to adapt some of those things. We may have to make changes to, the broader scope of how the process works. But I think, it's the awareness, it's the integration, it's the representation. It's all of those things that come when we see these things, and how we should be excited to want to make those changes so that all folks, every walk of life can come and sit in a seat that we sit in. So I wanted to say thank you again for both being here and enlightening us and giving us the information. I mean, from a different side. I've seen it as a spectator, but I think this is wonderful, and the work that you both and your team and all the volunteers have done has been amazing. Thank you.
Okay, so we will move over to the PC Caucus and begin with MLA Barkos.
Thank you. So first of all, it was absolutely beautiful. I know that they did just taking notes here all over the place, the canoe rally events kickoff in Gold River, which is in my constituency. It was supposed to be Wildcat, but I was trying to figure out or remember how, but somehow it got changed. But I know standing there and taking part in that, people from all over Chester St. Margaret's and elsewhere, and watching those students, I know it left a lasting impression, and it was a bit of an awakening for people that aren't part of this culture. And so I'm wondering what lasting culture impressions were or have been shared by participating NAG 2003 athletes and the volunteers and team staff who took part in the events.
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
I'm sure Brendan is jumping out of his seat too, because that's a great question. And I may have touched on this before, but one of my personal goals was to see and feel a shift in how people, non-Indigenous people, interact with Indigenous peoples here. And it's not that it's been negative, it's just been almost non-existent in some cases, right? And that's fair. It's just the way it's been. I feel that there's been a shift. There's this increasing curiosity, a desire to learn more. I get this every single day. It's partly due to my actual day job, because people do ask me about, what can I do to learn more and so on. I do think, anecdotally at least, that there has been a shift, especially for those who were involved in some way, whether it was just briefly, like walking through the cultural village, engaging with the vendors, learning how to make a wigwam, or whether it was to attend, the canoe relays that were in the 13 communities across Nova Scotia. Whatever it was, people wanted, a piece of it, right? And I think that spark, that's igniting curiosity in a generation, and I mean, again, is the younger people they get it, right? They're getting it in school. They're understanding the reality that we as human beings, as living beings, are all connected. We're not separate, right? And that's, I think, what the Games has done, is bring us together to that realization. We are connected to each other. We are connected to the earth. We are connected to everything around us, and that there's nothing really separating us other than our own hesitations, our own fears, our own lack of knowledge and understanding. So I truly believe these Games have been a turning point for us here in Nova Scotia in terms of our desire to learn more and to connect more. I think it broke down barriers. Brendan, did you have anything?
Mr. Smithson.
Thank you for that question. First of all, the Wildcat one had a rainstorm, and that was why we were unable to get, the elders weren't able to make it in terms of that. But and I wanted to just highlight the canoe relay a little bit. Was one of the reasons for that was our focus was athletes. And so the reason for the canoe relay was so that each community got to highlight their coaches, athletes, and got that moment. When you're going away, you do one big pep rally. When you're at home, you don't have that big pep rally because everyone's coming to Halifax. So we wanted to make sure the communities were involved, and the athletes and the coaches and the chaperones all got recognized. And we went around Nova Scotia, because even though the Games were mostly focused in Jabuktuk, it was the whole Nova Scotia that came to part of that. So we were able to go to all the communities and take the canoe, and that was the first one did get rained out, which was actually the first one, which was interesting in terms of that. So from that perspective, from a perspective of youth, I think Fiona spoke very well about the Nova Scotians in terms of that, but outside, one of the big messages we got from the delegations was that Halifax is a welcoming and safe place to come, and that they want to come back. And not just just to Halifax. Most of them stayed for an extra week and toured everywhere in Nova Scotia as part of that. In terms of that, that's where we started with. There's still a legacy to do in terms of making sure that continues in terms of that. But the message going home was very positive, that this is a welcoming environment to be in and be supportive, and you're seen in that environment from kids across Turtle Island. I think every one of them has said every kid wants to come back at some point. They asked if we were hosting 2027 because they wanted to come back. And it wasn't just in Halifax. A lot of them did tours out in all the way to Cape Breton, down to Yarmouth. They wanted to see everywhere. They wanted to see the communities. They wanted to go to every place in Nova Scotia. And so that was a big piece of that, which I think is exciting to see, that the games really encompassed the whole province. It wasn't, even though it seems like it was localized, it really wasn't. It was really everything that was part of it. There were multiple times I heard that they were happy to have a day off because they took a trip to like Pictou or to Chester or somewhere to go visit that. Their parents just took them and they're out. So it was really a welcoming environment that we created, and a legacy that I think will impact tourism in the future, people wanting to come here for sure.
MLA Barkos.
Well, I think Fiona has something.
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
I wanted to layer on that a little bit. I feel like I've been asked this a few times, and not just is NAG coming back, but can we do the cultural village again? Can we have it every summer? Like, if you want to volunteer to lead it, sure. Can you get the funding? But it just tells you that there is something there, right? There's something there. People do expect, when they come to a place like this, they see lots of wonderful I'm half Scottish, my dad's Scottish, love the Celtic culture, Acadian cultures, and so on, but we're not seeing a lot of expression of Mi'kmaq culture here during the high tourist season. So I think there's a lesson here, something could happen from a culture perspective in Nova Scotia, certainly. Just a suggestion. Let me just drop it there.
MLA Barkos.
So I think with over 750 Indigenous nations participating, how did NAG ensure that that different cultures were adequately represented? I see.
Mr. Smithson?
We focused a lot on Mi'kmaq culture in terms of how we shared culture within the games. Part of the reason for that was during the postponement from 2020, there was an opportunity for the games to go elsewhere. And NAG Council voted unanimously to keep them in Jabuktuk in Nova Scotia because it was the Mi'kmaq's turn to share their culture. And so we really highlighted that in terms of making sure that it was 50% sport, 50% culture throughout functional areas, and our training with the volunteers. We wanted our volunteers to allow the youth that were here to share their culture, to be stewards of their own culture. So, we didn't have every culture out there in terms of at every area. Our highlighting was around the Mi'kmaq culture, which is what the youth really wanted to know about while they were here. But they had the opportunity to share in terms of language. When they learned how to say hello in Mi'kmaq, then they would share how they do it. And one of the big pieces that we did was within the accommodations and within the venue, we always identified a space where kids could gather. And outside of every venue, including hotels, and I'm sure some of the residents were not happy about this, there were a lot of hand drums, because everyone brings hand drums. And what you will see is a youth go out there and start playing their hand drum that could be Cree, and other nations will just join and learn the song, and then they will share. And so there's a cultural sharing in terms of that. So we tried to create this space where they could come together to share. We created brave spaces in many of our venues as well, where the youth could come together and do those sharing in a safe space. So for us, it was about creating that environment where they felt comfortable to share their culture and it was respected in terms of that. And so that's how we brought it together, and working with our volunteers to make sure sure, if you don't know something, ask. Allow them to be a steward of their own culture. As I always, my example to a lot of our volunteers was, the favorite thing that people ask you is, where is something in Nova Scotia? And you're like, oh, let me tell you, you're going to go here, you're going to go there, you're going to go that way. And so we love sharing Nova Scotia and what it looks like, and so they'd like to do the same. So that's how we created that environment of being able to do that. We didn't have every culture rep at 750. There would have been a lot of signage if we had to try to do that, but overall, that was how that was our journey and what we felt was our way to move forward. Other games may think differently, but that's how we felt it would work in terms of moving forward.
Ms. Kirkpatrick, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, sure. I always have something to add. No, we really did want to nurture like each youth that was coming and encourage them to bring themselves fully. So you would have seen at the opening ceremonies, they would walk in with their particular regalia or symbols of their own culture, which was amazing to see. And I think in seeing the Mi'kmaq people express their culture so proudly, it gave them that feeling of, oh, I can do this too. I can bring this home with me. I can be myself at home, because not all communities are really culturally driven. Some of them have had that taken away through colonization, and I think coming here to experience collectively this sharing of culture, I think it helps rehabilitate, if you will, that sense of self, that sense of one's own culture, because we as Indigenous peoples are reclaiming our cultures. Not all have, kind of maximized that yet. Some are still trapped in colonization. And so coming here, they left feeling, I think, better than they came. That was our intent, is that they would go home. You talked about being the future leaders. Actually, they're leaders now, right, in their communities, but they're going to go home, and they are home now, and they're going to change. They're changed forever, and they're going to go home and change their own communities. So that's the effect that participating not only in sport, but in sharing one's culture does for your own self-worth. So I just wanted to speak to that. Thank you.
Emily Barkhouse.
How much time do we have left?
8:23.
Okay, I'm just going to ask one quick question, and I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Mr. Taggart. So on the cultural grounds and cultural showcases of the Halifax Commons and other areas around the city were visited by a lot of people, and a number of Indigenous artists were showcased. Do you have any stats on the number of visitors, and are you able to share feedback in regards to the visitor experience with these artists and whatnots?
Mr. Smithson.
So that's just being put together now. Preliminary numbers are over 16,000 visitors not from Nova Scotia, which is less than the number up there was 4,700. So you can times that by the number of people that were here in terms of coming to the games. We will have the final number as the report goes forward in terms of that from that perspective. Overall feedback, overwhelming positivity from everyone that we've spoken to, from the kids that were at the games. Our summary of how we feel it went is the only complaint we got was we got sandwiches too many times. So if that's the concern, we feel things are moving in a good direction. So I just actually met with the delegations last week again for the final wrap up, and their kids feel very positive, loved Nova Scotia, would come back again at any time. Really, we're proud of how we showcase the culture and other pieces like that.
Emily Barkhouse.
Thank you for that, and I know that it was a big worry and lots of preparation for the children. So that was, and we've heard it here. I'm glad to hear it again. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Tom Taggart, MLA Tom Taggart.
MLA Taggart.
Thank you. I got a lot of notes here, and I can't, but I really, there's a couple points I really want to make. And I guess first I want to really say thanks, okay? Like I just, I didn't attend. I was in Newfoundland on vacation that whole time. I wasn't involved. But I got to tell you, like as a Nova Scotian and part of the government, you know, I'm pretty darn proud of what I'm hearing here today and the work you guys did. I'm going to jump. I have a question, but I got to jump to a comment. You may wish to comment on it, but I don't want to lose the time. I run out of time here. You talked about, I forget how you framed it, about Mi'kmaq culture and how it's really not really, I forget how you framed it, but out there that much. I just, you know, I look forward to that changing. I represent Colchester North, and I was searching, trying to find the right name, but Tim Bernard and Don Julian and those guys really have a really, it's a really huge project, and I think it's called the Mi'kmaq Cultural Center. I know I've been to the Mi'kmaq Way de Bert, that's what it is. Yeah, I've met with them, you know, and I'm supportive. Look forward to it going forward, and that will really that I expect that to be just an absolutely huge draw, you know, huge opportunity, as well as the opportunity to draw people to our community just for that. I had to get that out there. I think it's critically important, and it's a big deal. And those guys are working hard at it, and I think it's moving forward quite quickly now. But anyway, sorry. So in the beginning, you spoke about some of the challenges of coordinating such a large-scale event and how you overcome them. What can we do to improve on and to ensure that the games return to our province in the very near future? What do we need to do? What can we do?
Mr. Smithson.
I think, you know, in terms of moving forward, one of the big pieces is continuing the legacy of the cultural piece and creating that welcoming environment within all areas of Nova Scotia. I don't know if people always understand what creates a welcoming environment. Like the idea of having a Mi'kmaq flag when you enter a building, you know, we see a Canadian flag every day, and when something's there, it just changes the mindset that like this is a welcoming environment. So there are, you know, there's some bigger pieces, but there are some smaller pieces that can easily be done to move some things forward. And the two gentlemen that you had mentioned, which were great supports to us as well in terms of that, and some partnerships with them, are great. You know, they come up with great ideas in terms of that. The airport, you've seen, they, you know, have added Indigenous art, right? The canoe is there. There's a welcome to Mi'kma'ki. Those pieces bring that comforting environment. So, you know, the way I often think about it is if I was in a different country, where do I pick to eat? The one place that has the English language on the door, right? So how do you kind of look at it in terms of that when you're looking at other places? And not just within Halifax, how do we do that across this province? I can tell you, as I said, they all went across this province. It was not just in Halifax, but how do we create that environment across the province is something to look at. And the words we used within the team was, how do we create the supportive environment for every youth? How are they supported? And we kept using those words and working with our partners about how do you create a supportive environment where you are, not asking you to change the whole landscape of a building, but what small thing. So $20 flag up in a building can change a youth's life. And so those are just small pieces. There's lots of others, but that's where you start from there.
So,
go ahead.
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
So you also asked about how can we get the games back. Well, as I understand, there is a process, and you know it's not automatic. But I will say that we were asked several times, when can you guys do this again? By people not from here. When is it going to come back? And I think it probably wouldn't be a stretch if we really wanted to have them back, to put forward a bid at some point. Well, yeah, so it's going to be in Calgary next, and then there'll be an opportunity to bid fairly soon on the games that are to come after that. But I think there's a minimum, is it 10 years between, is that the minimum?
It rotates west, central, east.
Yes, west, central, east. So the next would be central, and then it would be east after that. So we'll be looking at another, well, 10 years, 11 years from now when we'd be eligible to host again. I know it seems like a long way off. I'm going to be really old by then. What's that? It will come very quickly. I mean, heck, I was supposed to be the chair for the 2020 games. I came on board in October 2019, and here I am, still the chair 4 years later. It goes fast, though. It goes fast.
MLA Taggart, 59 seconds.
Sorry to take up too much time here. I just have to, I have this I like to be rural champion, and we talked about legacy a lot of times, and I just would like to, trust me, I'm not being critical because it was a huge success. But I think that I would expect that having these events in a community, it brings legacy, like you mentioned, ball fields and stuff like that. And I just encourage, and maybe that's a role of provincial too, I don't know. But in the future, if we could try and spread our wings a little bit, use Halifax for the anchor, and get out. Millbrook's a great community; it's very close to home, but there's lots of others that. And so I just, it's an important piece to get outside of the center is a draw, right? But out into. Just want to get that in. Thanks.
Order. MLA Taggart, you handled that just to the second, actually. I was thinking we're a little limited on time, and perhaps I'd welcome some closing remarks as opposed to going a speed round, if that's... So maybe we'll let MLA Nicol ask her quick question and welcome you to give some closing remarks.
As you're in your closing remarks, maybe you could address how you're growing the NAG games. Like you mentioned, welcoming environments and safe community, but with regards to growing the sports for women in the NAG games. So you can maybe nuance that into your closing remarks.
Ms. Kirkpatrick Parsons.
Sure. Well, I didn't prepare closing remarks. I prefer to speak from the heart, so I will start with that. So my term with NAG is done as soon as we are wrapping up the affairs of the host society, and that will conclude my time, I think. I've been asked to consider other things, but right now I need a break. But I know that, as the Legacy Fund Committee is contemplating how to disseminate the funds that we have a surplus of, that women in sport, in Mi'kmaq sport, is being strongly considered as recipients of some of that. So I'll say no more on that until we have final determination. But I know that there's definitely desire around the committee table that we do more to support young women or women in sport in general in Mi'kmaq communities. So there is that. I want to first say, and I'll, Brendan wants to add to this. Obviously, I would love it.
Sure.
I want to thank you all for your interest and your enthusiasm and your very good questions today. They really help us feel, because it's been a few months and I'm suffering from event withdrawal. So you've been able to give us the opportunity to re-enter the wonderful world of the North American Indigenous Games, which personally has been the greatest honor of my life. Yeah, it has been. As a little lonely Cree, living here in a beautiful Mi'kma'ki, in the warm embrace of Mi'kmaq people, I can tell you this is a beautiful people who have a lot to offer, a lot to share, and investing in Mi'kmaq youth is one of the best investments that the province of Nova Scotia could ever make. The Indigenous youth across this land are the fastest growing population of any population. They are the most underserved from a medical, educational, cultural standpoint, in every other way. They have so many roadblocks in their path to success in life. To be able to offer something like the North American Indigenous Games for them to aspire to gives them hope. When we give youth hope, that's everything. That's everything. That's all you need sometimes in life. Any of us have been through hard times. Sometimes all you have is hope to hang on to. We give them that bright light of hope. We shine a light on who they are as people, as people with nothing but potential. So investing in these youth is absolutely a path forward for all of our benefit, not just for this is not charity. This is about investing in a stronger economy, right? A stronger taxpayer base, if you will. We do pay taxes, by the way. A lot of folks don't know that. We do. And we, I think if we can consider where we can invest in their well-being, sports and culture is certainly two great avenues. We consider it one and the same, but two great avenues to do just that. There's much, much more, and it's very complex, and I realize we have a lot of major problems and major items we need to solve in this province. But at the same time, we do need to think about how are we going to invest in and grow this population of incredible young people who are just waiting for a chance to live up to their own potential and to give back and make our communities stronger here in Mi'kma'ki and beyond. So I don't know what else I can say beyond what you saw in the presentation. I hope that the spirit of NAG has touched each of you in some way and that you'll carry it forward, that you'll revisit our Facebook page while it's still up and then watch the whole video for yourself because it's on there. Keep the spirit of NAG in your hearts because it is not only for the participants, but it was for everyone else who attended. And it has been an absolute great privilege to work with this man here as well, who truly led our team. And I don't know if you know this, but Brendan was our third CEO. It was a journey. That's a whole other story. We can talk about it offline. No. But Brendan really took this on. He was our director of sport and venue for 2020, and we know what happened there. And then we looked around us when we were looking for a chair, and we went, or for a CEO, and we went, hey, he's staring us right in the face. And he took this role and ran with it. And I could not be more proud to have worked by his side. He was the most dedicated person, as I mentioned. He led by example. And I'd like to give him the last word today.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smithson, no pressure.
Yeah, I had to follow that. I was really hoping that was kind of the end right there in terms of how that went. But I guess I do want to thank everybody at this committee for your questions today, and also the province of Nova Scotia for supporting these games. A lot of people don't know that there is a bilateral agreement that makes sure the games happen, but there was an additional funding that came forward to ensure the games stayed here through the postponement. And so without the support of the province of Nova Scotia, that would not be here. And the impacts are amazing. I guess the one comment that I would add, and on top of what Fiona said, is looking within your communities that you're in to how you can create a supportive environment for everyone. Fiona had mentioned about the communities, but I think it's also the games to me was always about Indigenous and non-Indigenous coming together in terms of that. And that part of that work is working not just with community, but making our mainstream more welcoming and creating that environment, and you'll see a massive change from that. And hopefully, as we said, our games were a stepping stone, not the end. And so we hope that is the case. And I know there's a lot of work to do, but I know with some great people around the table, we'll be able to continue moving things forward in terms of that, and not just in Halifax, beyond as well, and how we can continue moving forward. So thank you all for your support in making these games stay here and be such a success, because without the province, this wouldn't have happened, and it really meant a lot to all the youth that came here. And I don't know if you know how much they were impacted, but you've changed lives, and that's a huge deal. So thank you.
It was definitely our pleasure to have you both here today. It makes me very proud. Some great leaders, some great leadership, and I did have a chance to talk to some of the ambassadors and some of the kids that were here, and their stories were incredible. So I mean, it changed me too as well, and I think that you're very correct in saying that it changed our province, and I'm just so happy that that we were able to hear firsthand from you guys post event, and look forward to the rest that's coming. So you're welcome to leave now. We do have a little tiny piece of committee business. I will call a 3-minute recess just so that you can collect your things.
Thank you very much, everyone.
order. I call the Standing Committee on Community Services back to order. We have a little bit of committee business for the topic of supports for low-income Nova Scotians and the impact of inflation. Mr. Afsad Kwan was identified as a witness. However, Asaf Kwan is no longer employed with Feed Nova Scotia. They have suggested that Ms. Miwani Mutinda come and appear in his place. Just seeing if that is in agreement with the committee. Seeing no questions with that, okay. And then the only other thing is just a reminder that our next meeting in the new year is on a different time and date, or a different date, I should say. It's going to be January 11th, 2024, which is a Thursday at 10. It's in alignment with HR committee due to the holidays. And the topic there is the support for low-income Nova Scotians and the impact of inflation. Our witnesses will be the Department of Community Services and, as I mentioned, Feed Nova Scotia. And if there's no other committee business, MLA Nicol?
Just a quick question with regards to, I like consistency. Community services equals Tuesday. I just wondered, like, if the following Tuesday, you said Thursday was the 11th?
Yes, we had it was in our last committee where we discussed after the holidays, so the committee agreed that we would have it on January 11th, which is a Thursday at 10 a.m.
We probably didn't realize it was a Thursday.
Yeah, and I was saying, is the other committee meeting on the same day?
Yes, HR is on the afternoon of that day so that it aligns with everyone coming back from holidays,
Oh,
the
for
way
those
the
who
new year
travel.
falls.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
So we will, no other committee business. We will adjourn. The meeting is adjourned.